Hi, I'm Gordon Draper, and I'm the host of the Cyber Consulting Room podcast. Today, I have a panel interview with two guests. The first guest we have is Goodwin Garcia, who is a passionate advocate for women in cybersecurity, having founded the Cyber Chicks organization, starting with representation in France and Australia regions. Also, we have Busch, who is a seasoned cybersecurity executive, having served as the Chief Information Security Officer and Chief Technology Officer. He has advised numerous tech companies and held board positions at organizations like the IT Service Management Forum Australia and the Shire Christian School in Sydney, Australia, which is also coincidentally where Catherine went to school. We go into detail about topics such as women in technology, the role of the CISO, as well as talking about leadership and mentorship within cybersecurity. But before we run the interview, let's have a word from our sponsor, cybermarket.com. Cyber threats are real. Are you prepared? Finding the right cybersecurity consultant can be a daunting task. Trust and quality are paramount. Introducing cybermarket.com, the solution to your cybersecurity hiring needs. We've done the hard work for you. Our consultants are pre-vetted, certified, and trusted by industry professionals. Ready to elevate your security? Visit cybermarket.com and find the perfect consultant for your needs. Your cybersecurity assured. Hi, I'm Gordon Draper, and I'm the host of the Cyber Consulting Room podcast. Today with me, I've got Goodwin Garcia, and she's a passionate advocate for women in cybersecurity, having founded the Cyber Chicks movement to promote diversity and inclusion in the industry. With a strong background in information security, business continuity, and regulatory compliance, risk management, and AI governance, Catherine brings a wealth of experience to the table, having worked at Citibank and as a consultant for various organizations in intellectual property law firms. Catherine has also been the first woman to have been nominated as the chair for the US Embassy's Overseas Security Advisory Council in Paris, France. She's also been the chair of other boards. We've also got we've got Busch. Bradley is a seasoned cybersecurity executive with a wealth of experience in leadership roles. He has served as a CISO and a CTO, advised numerous tech companies, and held board positions at organizations like IT Service Management Forum Australia and Shire Christian School, where Catherine went to school. His expertise spans a wide range of areas, including cybersecurity, cloud transformation, and IT governance. Thank you for joining us today, Brad.
Great to be here. Thanks, Gordon. And amazing how global our cybersecurity community is.
Catherine's currently joining us from Paris in France. So we've really got this, the global connection working today. So Catherine, what is your background and how did you get into cybersecurity? And what advice do you have for people getting into cybersecurity?
Great. Okay, so I'll try and keep this a bit quick and straight to the point. Well, let's be very straight. And I left school. I went straight into ballet. I did not go into cybersecurity. I didn't even know what that was then. The truth is I went straight into dance, and then I went and had a career in ballet and performing in Tokyo. And then I ended up in London after my daddy passed away. And I ended up in London, and I was looking after old ladies with dementia for a little while. I suddenly thought, oh gosh, I've got a secretary diploma. I should go and use it. And I ended up in Citibank. And so I was a secretary in Citigroup, and I got transferred into the fraud department. And they kind of had a little bit of an argument about me. Oh, you can't go back to temping. You can stay here. So I ended up working in the fraud department. I didn't even know what fraud was. Okay, how naive I was then. Anyway, so I became the office manager. And from that point of time, I then started to move up into compliance. I got this real niche about I like justice. I want to get involved with doing things that are right, and regulations. I like regulations. I liked law. So I was very lucky to be mollycoddled by a few fantastic men who became mentors to me and a couple of women. And I started to move my way in through Citigroup, and I became permanent when I moved to Paris. And they gave me the role of information security manager, the BISO, business information security manager. And I thought, what's a BISO? And then they gave me the COB, continuity business. And I didn't even know what a continuity business plan was. So I was then sent off to Belgium to learn all about this with these wonderful people in Belgium. And I learned about the COB, and I wrote the first disaster recovery plan for the Cbank France organization, which incorporated 3 trading floors, equities, fixed income, and foreign exchange, and all the service groups, which incorporates HR, procurement, legal and compliance, and all that, and the operations department, which is the back office of the bank, which is where pretty much the Citigroup had the biggest amount of money going through it at the time, on New Year's Eve because of all the corresponding banks. So Citibank was a very big partner with that, from a global perspective of moving money around the world. So I suddenly was literally thrown head first into learn. So the truth is I actually got very excited about information security because it incorporated policies, and I like policies and procedures. And I like to make things simple. So these 50-page documents would end up coming to me, and I'd have to go and speak to managers and tell them what they needed to do and how they can work with technology. Techies used to get a little bit annoyed because they couldn't express themselves properly to business people. So I kind of became an advocate between business and tech. So the BSO, business. The TSO was the techie guys working with the CISO. And guess what? Citigroup had the biggest hack back in 1999, and which is why I think Citibank might have been one of the first companies on the planet to put in place the Information Security Management Program, where we actually had to start looking at confidentiality, integrity, and availability, how we're managing it, what's happening with it, and how's it moving. That's how I started. That's what I've been doing ever since, and I've moved my way through that process, and I've learned along the way. And I just felt inspired, and I love working with people. So I've found my way as a BSO to be the foundation of what I started to do in business as an executive. So that's where I started. Now I don't have a degree, and I learned on the job, and I have continued my entire life now so far to continue to upskill. So cybersecurity is the wonderful, big, fashionable word now, which has come from information security and information security of data management. Then we had big data stuff happening in the last 15 years. Then we've had the cloud arrive. And I think I wrote one of the first articles in 2015, which literally was safe haven. Get ready, everybody. The cloud is coming and everything will be in the cloud. And that's where we are today. Well, not quite for some big banks and some big organizations. We do still have some legacy systems that still need to be managed, unfortunately. But that's how things are. Things don't happen overnight. But we are now in that world of cloud. And I learned about SaaS products and platforms in the last decade. I was selling SaaS platforms back in 2015 for IP law firms. And this is where I started to change and to evolve from the Information Security Management Program into cybersecurity. Then we had the NIST. So, learning these regulatory things like ISO 27001 was my baby, and learning with people, working closely with legal compliance and governance heads, and working very closely with the CISO and his group, and being part of that organization of information security officers is where I got started. And then from there, I kind of moved and maneuvered up. And I ended up as the principal BISO for the EMEA region for the corporate and investment bank. And I worked hand in hand with the other principal BISO for operations, because in banking, operations and front office groups are separated from Chinese walls, which is important. And you learn this stuff as you go along. So my background is learning on the job and doing certifications in the last 5 to 10 years. There we go.
And what advice do you have for people getting into cybersecurity?
My advice is absolutely, you need to get involved, get yourselves a little bit skilled. You need to find people and people like me to mentor and help you to get yourselves into, you need to be on the job. On the job is where you learn. And on the job is where you need to be. And I know that today it's tough because people are not working in offices 5 days a week anymore. They're working on a remote basis, on a hybrid basis. That's where you can be a little bit isolated. That's why it's also important to look out for, find somebody who you can talk with, who can actually guide you along, who's willing to give you some advice from time to time and be your friend and hold your hand. And you need to understand, you need to keep upskilling. That's the thing too, especially in the world of AI. But when I'm down the track, we're going to talk about that a bit later. But I want to say advisedly, get into the industry, work in it, and learn on the job. This is how you learn.
Brad, over to you. So what is your background? How did you get into cybersecurity, and what advice do you have?
Wow. So I taught myself to program when I was 7 years old on a TI 99 4A in BASIC, and I used to save my programs to a cassette tape. For those who are younger in our audience, it's before what happened when you had floppy drives. We used to play music from them. Spotify before Spotify, and Catherine and Gordon, I can all remember doing a mixtape. So that's what I used to save my programs to. Kathy and I have a shared passion for policy. I then graduated as an aerospace engineer. And if you think about what does aerospace engineering have to do with cybersecurity, it's about designing complex systems to operate in an uncertain environment and be run by humans. And all of that is underpinned by very strong compliance requirements. From there, I actually enjoyed computers so much, I got a job on the help desk, which taught me all about people and connecting with humans and customers. I then moved into technology and process consulting. I really enjoyed that a lot, service management and ITSM. Implemented a whole bunch of tools. And then I moved into operations, risk and digital. And risk in the digital platforms. We used to call it online services way back then. But risk in the digital platforms is fundamentally cybersecurity. From there, I was able to progress into a full-time cybersecurity career. I was the security operations manager initially. Then I became, like Catherine, a VISO for a investment bank on the investment banking side in the capital and equity department, investing in venture capital and private equity funds. So what advice do I have? I think Kathy and I have shown you, have a passion, have an interest, follow your interest. Don't be afraid of your transferable skills. Are you good with customers? Are you great at running a program? Can you really, really pull apart a complex problem? These are all skills that you can show in any career that are highly useful in cybersecurity. Have a goal of continuous learning. Keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. Never give up. How did an aerospace engineer end up in venture capital? I kept learning. And also stay current. This is an ever-changing industry. And so a podcast in the morning, a quick read in the afternoon, just keep current. Stay aware of what's going on, because awareness is your greatest strength in cybersecurity.
I actually learned to code on a Texas Instruments 99 4A as well.
Nice.
Yes, we were playing with the old cassette tapes, and they did have a cartridge occasionally as well.
Yeah, they were awesome games machines. They were cartridge games machines. Loved them.
So, Catherine, what are the most common biases or stereotypes that women in cybersecurity often encounter, and how can we address them to create a more equitable workplace? CyberChicks is a great innovation, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing where CyberChicks comes. What can you recommend from here?
Okay, just to let you know, guys, it's a little bit funny with the sound coming at the moment for me. So I hope you can hear me clearly, but I'm getting a little bit of feedback and a little bit of weird noise from you both, but it's okay. I think the question was, we're going on to question 2 in regard to women in tech and how this is working and the innovation of the side of things. I just want to say a few things in regard to this. My biggest passion now is about getting more women into cybersecurity, AI, and the future emerging technologies, because I've been to so many conferences in the last few years, well, particularly the last 2 years since the COVID, where I've actually really found, my God, where are the women? And we need to balance up a little bit, because I know there's a few little points that can differentiate us a little bit. You know, guys like to get really in there, like Brad, you know, coding and stuff and whatever. But there is a balance around policy, around administrative stuff, around things like that, where women can really, really enhance that. And also probably also from a networking point of view, you know, getting out there and talking with people and helping the business to understand what needs to be done and to converse that with technology. So I'm not a techie, but I'm a compliance guru, and I love that. But the thing is, I know how to work business to tech, and I know how to work techies to business, so everyone can be happy. And I think at the end of the day, it's around innovation. And the old word we used to say, I think it was, I like to think outside the box. But I think the word today is actually, it's around innovative thinking and how you use a common sense attitude to make things better for people and more practical. So, lots of documentations can actually, I used to break things down from 50 pages to 2 pages and say, Mr. Business Manager, guess what you need to know about in information security? Bang, 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 bang. If you can tick those off every 3 months for me, I'm very happy. Now, when it comes down to women, there's a few things we're thinking about too. I've raised 3 kids, not easy. I have adopted 3 Russian babies and they're wonderful teenagers now. The point is that we do end up having to take away our careers sometimes and go out and then come back in. And that can be that's a bit of a shift. Okay. And that's also a bit of a maneuver that at the moment, I think in society, there is bias around that. And we need to talk about bias in a minute. But there's another thing too. There's a lot of stereotyping around male-dominated areas in cybersecurity. And to this day, that's getting better. I was very happy to see in Australia when I was recently in Sydney how much more advanced Australia has become in regards to balancing up between women and men in the future of technology and technologies. I'm absolutely thrilled to bits. That is still a problem in Europe. That is still a concern. I think it's getting there, but we're still at that 75-25 mark at the moment. There's also doubt around technical skills. Women don't always have the full-on technical backgrounds that some of the men do. But that's changing radically also because of the way that, look at social media, how it's changing our children's thinking. They're becoming more adaptable to utilizing systems and operating systems. Therefore, kids using phones, they're much more quick shift, here we go. Here's what you do. Oh, mummy, it's gone like that. You press 3 times here and there goes your Apple ID again. Bang, you're on. So technically skilling has changed also. And I think more and more women are balanced in that area with boys today, girls and boys and men and women. I think going to bias, there's a thing called imposter syndrome, where we can find systemic bias and lack of representation that can actually amplify feelings of feeling like you're an imposter, especially among women. I think women we're still getting our way to really say what we want to say. And that's all because of we are still in that transitional period of coming from what we did, how we can do it, and where we need to be. So we're still in that place also. There's also, I have an example of an amazing woman who was very much involved with the technology department, but she left. Workplace exclusion. So it can be tough. Now, this is not everywhere, but these are some of the points that I'm bringing up to be aware of. Also, unconscious bias in hiring. It is a fact that women over 50 are going to have a harder time getting a job. They're going to have a difficult time doing things because they may have been out of the industry for a while. They're raising children and they want to come back in. They've upskilled, they're up there and they're ready to go, but they're not getting in because of coded bias in human resource AI systems today. This is a huge thing I'm looking at. I'm actually going to write a paper about it. There are unconscious bias in hiring and promotion. And I think that looking across the board, we have got wonderful young people coming through the echelons. We have extraordinary middle management people. And then we have the amazing people like Brad and I who are in that echelon where we're not ready for retirement. Good grief, we've got another 15 years where we can actually contribute to the economic sustainability of our countries and the economic world today. So why on earth is there such a bias? And this has only been the last 3 years. The bias has been hitting the channels in these systems and these great lakes. The LLMs and the models have been designed by men, but mostly I'm yet to find a woman who's actually been involved with a HR model at the moment, ML. But the truth is these have been put in place. Now, this is where we need to balance up. If we can have a woman's voice in there, which actually incorporates the fact that, by the way, when you're doing risk assessment and you're developing a product, we all know about development, right? DevSecOps. In that process, maybe there could actually start to be, has a developer female checked out this code? There's some things that we could start to be looking at, to be incorporating around bias, around the male brain and the female brain, because guess what? We're all going to be using these products in the future, whether we're a man or a woman. Now, one last thing I want to mention, gender expectations. So we do have different roles to play in life, and we do have different things to do. Women can be a bit more emotional about situations, whereas men can be much more kind of stark about it and put the mask on more easily. Women are a little bit more, hello, but what about me? Now, this is completely fine, but we're getting there. And but I think the thing is coming in to work as teams, learning that we've got differences and to be able to sustain that as working as in this concept of mentoring, managing interpersonal conflicts, looking beyond job descriptions, understanding the personality. I think that's going to be a big part of us balancing up going forward also, and looking at that from the point of view of where we could be in regard to bias and stereotyping. That's my point.
Thank you for that well-researched, pointed out statements. Brad, what do you...
By the way, there's no sexism, guys. We're just talking out plain English here.
Yes, that's exactly right. The differences going into LLMs of the inputs, and we're all going to use them, be the input predominantly male or female logic. Logic's not the right word. Logic is logic. Inputs to the systems. Brad, what do you think of, you're considering helping out CyberChick from what I understand. What do you think of biases and stereotypes?
Well, I can give you the easy engineering answer, which is the first airbags killed women. They saved men, but they were designed by a team of men who designed airbags to save objects that look like them. And that's become a bit of a meme in the design industry. But it's actually important to recognize in terms that we need to understand our customer. And so if we look at some of the biases against women, maybe they're seen as not nerdy enough. Hackers wear hoodies. And that comes way back from the 80s. If there's two movies you want to watch on Netflix on the weekend, have a look at Weird Science and War Games. But then what have we got in recent times? We've got the girl with the dragon tattoo and Mr. Robot. Now, the girl is hacking in the dragon tattoo, but she still wears a black hoodie. And so is that something that our younger people aspire to? Do they want to wear black hoodies? And that sense that the girls aren't one of the boys. And that's because they might have carers' responsibilities. It might just be the attitude that they bring to work. They may not be into gaming or sports, organised sports. There are plenty of sports that women are into, but they tend not to be the ones that are on Saturday night while you're drinking a beer. Women can be seen as too kind. And so how do we address this? Well, firstly, shared interest. How do we find that shared and common benchmark about what we're all interested in together? Can we talk about stuff that's fun? Back to my advice about how to join the industry, just stay fascinated by cybersecurity, because that's something we've all got in common. We're all fascinated by it. One of the things that I really resist is when another male says, "Oh, I'm off to do daddy daycare. I've got to look after the kids." I'm like, no, that's called parenting. You are that child's parent. But also that means that flexibility is for parents, not just mums. It's for mums, for dads, for dog owners, for cat owners, for people who own a motorbike that needs to be serviced today. What's important in your life? How do we give you flexibility to be engaged with work and your life? And that's, I think, a super important part about actually how we start to make the workplace more approachable for people as we make it for everyone. I had a staff member and his wife was actually is qualified as a surgeon and practices as a pediatric anaesthetist. That's a tough job. And some days he needs to go home and pick up his son from daycare. And for those of us in Australia, we know what it means to be late to daycare. That's a big bill. And so you don't want that big bill. And so it was absolutely important that on those days he go home on time. And this is a senior cybersecurity leader going home on time, because that's the way that we, as male leaders, show show our care, consideration and concern, and that this is for everyone. And we're starting to create an inclusive team. I have one other challenge for the men listening. One of the things I noticed is that I grew up, and I'm a man of a certain age, and for me, power figures, high court justices, politicians, doctors, were all men in my life. And so I found that when I was telling a story or trying to relate to one of those professions, I'd say, hey, here's your challenge. What if we change our default gender pronoun? I wonder what Her Honour thinks of that. We're creating the picture of a world that we want to live in. And so I know it's a tough conversation to have at the moment because we're having conversations about gender and the reality of gender. But I'd just like to say maybe the first way that we can try is just changing our default gender now. She, her. That will give everyone a chance.
So touching on inclusivity and diversity in cybersecurity culture, what would you say are the benefits of fostering a more inclusive and diverse culture inside the cybersecurity culture?
Oh, yes. So I start with the benefits. Hackers are diverse too. I promise you, hackers are diverse too. They come from all ages, from all genders, and from all nations. They typically have a broad language background. They are a highly diverse crowd. So what do we need is we need a diversity of thinking and skills to approach that problem. And so our army just equally needs to be just as diverse. We need to have a strategy. A strategy is great, but we need to turn that into a plan. What steps will we take? How do we actually make it more accessible and active to have women join the cybersecurity workforce? And the other part is, I think the most important part, which I already, spoilers, let you know, is it's that role model. It's who we are as male leaders. It's the choices that we make in terms of the opportunities, the flexibility, and the language that we use. These are all things that actually are changes we can make today.
Can I just add to that? That's really exactly right on spot, Brad. I just want to mention that fostering an inclusive and diverse cybersecurity culture requires intentional strategies that Brad's put them up: structural, cultural, and individual. Now, this is on the individual bias scenario. And if we look at this, diversity in cybersecurity is not just a moral obligation. It's imperative that we also look at enhancing innovation, resilience, and adaptability in tackling the future threats. Now, we have got evolving threats off the charts at the moment with AI now all over the shop. So that'll be another discussion. But like Brad's mentioned also, and I'm right behind this, roadmap. We use the old-fashioned word roadmap, and we're still going to use it today because it's a strategy. It's a way of looking at how do we go from A to Z, or A to B to C to D, and you go from there. And so I want to mention a couple of things. Looking at leadership accountability and how that's working, implementing bias-free recruitment practices and how that could work, promoting a culture of being part of it, belonging, mentorships and sponsorships, which actually CyberChicks is going to be working on launching in the new year, expanding opportunities for career advancement, and even getting in and even coming back in. How many of us are ready to be able to come in and say, yes, we can do this? I'm consulting, but gee, wouldn't it be great to have a permanent job again? But the consulting side of it is there, and I'm doing that. Brad's doing that. We're all doing that. The point is, though, when you think about what's going on, there needs to be also accountability in regards to where do the young people look up? Who's up there for them to look up to and to give them that kind of guidance and those strategies and excitement to have that emotional, yes, I like what I do. I want to keep doing this. I want to be involved. There needs to be a really nice equality around those coming in at entry level, those in middle management, and those up there who have been there, done it, and have got their sleeves pulled up, been in the mud, and done it all. And then you've got the wonderful people who I'm actually going to be involving in CyberChicks down the track very soon, who have retired. But they've got stories too, and they've got wonderful experience that they can share with younger people today, which would actually really help us for the future. It's called humanity keeping connected, right? So I just want to mention those couple of things to add to what Brad has already spelled out. Thanks very much.
And Catherine just brought out my favorite point. Experience is the thing you get just after you needed it. Oh, that just happened. Now I have experience. So learn from somebody else's, please. If age has given me any wisdom, listen to somebody else's story and learn from it.
Yeah, and guess what? We've all been there. I've got some horrific stories. I've had to burn out fires left, right, and centre. I've had bomb scares. I've had floods. I've had everything go wrong. But you know what? When you've got stories, like Brad's got stories too, when you've got people like that to be able to talk about their stories, it helps you to navigate through what you may have to handle too. And let's be honest, the way it's going with the AI, it's not going to stop. It's only going to get bigger and better. Or more hassly, let's be honest. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I have these great discussions on the Cyber Consulting Room podcast, is bringing it all together and bringing these stories out from people that are experienced and have different perspectives, being able to share it with the listeners and people on YouTube as well. So we definitely, you were talking about evolving threat landscape. What are the most significant emerging cyber threats that organizations should be aware of? And how can they prioritize their security efforts to address these threats? This is probably the only one that I'm going to cover on that's a hard threat cybersecurity topic. Brad, what are your thoughts on the evolving threat landscape?
Yeah, so I'm going to go straight to the people. Our people are our greatest strength and also our greatest weakness. And so attackers have learnt that as we harden our infrastructure, the only thing they can go after is the person who's behind the keyboard. And they're sneaky. They're using synthetic media, the technical term for what we would all like to call deep fakes. We're able to impersonate someone, pretend to be someone else in cultures where there's a high power distance, so a big distance between the boss and the worker. The worker learns to never even ask a question because the boss said. And if we can pretend to be the boss accurately, then guess what? They're going to do what the boss said. And we've seen that a couple of times, losing tens of millions of dollars. What the attackers are attacking there is it's called the amygdala hijack. The amygdala is that lizard part, the middle part of your brain. It's a phenomenon where your emotional responses completely override the rational part of your brain. And it just keeps you stuck in fight or flight. This is just a con man. And with Gordon's permission, I want to recommend another podcast, The World's Greatest Con. They go through the history of stealing tens of millions of dollars of whiskey and diamonds from Antwerp and hacks that were impossible. But you'll get so many stories that resonate with your business colleagues about actually, well, what went wrong? What could they have done about it? And then what would be the cybersecurity analogy? So I think people are the weakest link and the strongest link if we can strengthen them. The biggest antivirus you can give someone for the amygdala hijack is take a moment, 3 deep breaths, and step away and take 5 minutes. Urgency is actually one of the key signs that somebody's trying to take over your amygdala. So if it is that urgent, seriously, 2 minutes in most cases won't save lives. And you'll know that it will if you're in that job. So take a breath.
Yeah,
take a sip of a cold glass of water. And you'll find that calms you down and gives you the chance to think. And get somebody else's expertise, the experience that you needed before you had this situation. And then just the normal things. Hygiene. It is just hard work. Patch, build, test, run, retire. Patch, build, test, run, retire. Keep your passwords. Take NIST's latest guidance. Long, strong, but not overly strong, as in just long phrases, properly long phrases. And then if you do have long phrases, don't reset unless there is signs of a compromise. Little things like that, those are gifts that we can give our customers. At the same time, we're making it harder to type the password.
Can I just add to what Brad's saying too? I just want to just elaborate a little bit on that word in regard to breathe and then think. there's something that's really important from what I've experienced in my career, and that was the fact that I made it very clear. I made myself go and meet a bunch of very important key role people, like the head of legal, the head of compliance, the human resource manager, the head of technology, and I became like brother and sister. And specific people, a really important key role people, are critical in becoming part of your little tiny world of, oh my God, if I've got to deal with this, who is there to be beside me? Because you can't do it on your own. It's part of being a team, and those people are going to be critically helpful in what you do. It's tough to do it, but when I got that team around me from a global, from an EMEA region and a local region, these were my number one people. So whenever there was an issue or a problem or a threat or an impact on anything, whether it was a flood or whether it was a system go down or whether it was whatever happening, I had tech, I had legal, I had compliance, I had HR. They were the first four guys, and we'd like, oh my God, guys, we're doing this. And of course, we had the CEO or the chief country officer to make sure he knew what was going on. And I had access to my legal head, would then help me with regulators if we had to report things to regulators. And that's really it's critical to have your key role people around you. Even though you're not in their department, they are the people you want on your team when things go wrong. That's your emergency department group. And just on a couple of points also, I want to mention in regards to emerging cyber threats, it's ever growing, and Brad will agree with me, but we've got AI-driven attacks coming out our eyeballs now. Ransomware is evolving out of proportions. Supply chain attacks are on the rise in a massive way. Cloud security vulnerabilities are coming up, and Brad will know more about that. IoT, OT exploitations, deep fakes, Brad's mentioned it, looking at that con scenario too. And then social engineering. Now, social engineering is one of the longest things anyone's ever learned when it's from information security management, awareness training, right to this day. Social engineering is at the bottom of every one of these things. And the human person, there's the good and there's the bad. Absolutely. Humanity, always. What is the biggest threat we've always had in big banks or in big institutions or any organization? The employee. The employee, the person working in the company, and the training background also. Are you trained? Do you understand what we're doing? Have you been awareness trained? How's that working? What's going on? That's the basis of everything, and that's where social engineering becomes a massive part of all these other areas. You've got insider threats, you've got post-quantum cryptography potential risks, which comes from a techie scenario, and you've got zero-day exploits and responding to patch management strategies and every other thing that has to be dealt with techies. And then you've got data poisoning. The list just goes on. And so at the end of the day, though, we go back to the fact, cyber threats, social engineering base, moving up. And then you've got, but this is only getting bigger. Cyber threats from the past were very, very well handled. We could control it. But now it's becoming a huge monster outside the box now. And Brad might be able to elaborate a little bit on that over the next couple of questions also as we go forward. Thanks.
What I was going to, you've covered the threat environment very well, actually. You've covered many different types of threats. And I guess one of my questions would be, from there, how has the role of the CISO evolved in recent years, and what new skills and responsibilities are required to be successful in this role?
Let's hope that the audio sorts itself out. So look, the role of the CISO. CISOs come typically from a very technical or very process-driven background. The new and emerging role of the CISO is about building trust. And Kathy gave you a lot of insight into what it means to be part of an executive and leadership team. And that a key element of that team is actually building trust, that we are commercial, that we are strategic, that we can support the business goals and the business values, that we operate just like another senior leader and an executive. So there's a lot of opportunity there for us to focus on the network and the connection and becoming trust builders. The other new and emerging skill is being an advisor. Now, for as long as I can remember, in fact, I used to introduce myself at conferences with the joke of welcome to the Department of No. And we're no longer the Department of No. We're the Department of really, I wonder if we could. And how would we do that? So being seen and being engaged as an advisor early in a program so that we can support business owners to achieve their outcomes in the safest possible way. Because in any industry, the last thing we want to do is cause harm. We don't want to cause harm to our customers. We don't want to cause any harm to our staff in schools. We don't want to cause any harm to our students. So it is important for our ethical and moral responsibilities that we don't want to cause harm. So how can we execute our vision in the safest possible way?
That's a really good point. Catherine, what do you recommend for the way that the CISO's role has changed over the years?
One of the things is that the CISOs today are just amazing, but they are being burnt out. And I actually think, and this is the Kathy strategy again, I truly think that we need to think of going back to the old model in regards to helping CISOs for the future, because the CISO role has become so many hats, black hats, red hats, white hats, you name it, in regards to what they need to do and what they need to know. We're talking DPA, data protection. We're talking the techie side of things. We're talking about being on the board and reporting to CEOs. Their hat has become so extraordinarily long that there's no way that they can keep this right without having the support network of BISOs and TISOs. So BISOs being business information security officers like myself, where we work with the business and we help the CISO and we become part of that kind of group and we get things done and we do the risk assessments and help the organization with that. And we work closely with the techies, which is the technology information security officers who are in the tech departments, who are there to do the technical analysis around architecture, around risk assessments, around vulnerabilities, and can report back to the BISO like me. And I'll say, right, what's happening with that? What's happening with that? Then I can go up to Mr. CISO and say, guess what, Steve or Brad or whoever you are, or let's say it's Kathy Goodwin, the CISO. Basically, it is, here's all the stuff you need to know. Here's the reports we've got from our different groups. And guess what? That is a huge headache taken off the CISO. And this is where I think CISOs seem to be given all this stuff that they need to do. It's burnout material. And it will absolutely be a major problem, especially now with AI and what's happening around the AI world. And I've done AI governance. This is another section that CISOs are going to have to get their head around in regards to models, the LLMs, the MLs, and the whole coding scenario. All of these guys, CISOs are architecturally and technically sound. However, the foundational support network needs to be in place to help CISOs get this right. Therefore, it would be great to have BISOs to help them, or at least have people on those teams like we talked about before in regards to who are your best friends in the company, legal, compliance, HR, blah, blah, technology and information security officers, bang. But I think looking at this in a very evolutionary way, the CISO role, extraordinarily, and there's huge discussions right now on LinkedIn about this. And I'm actually talking to some amazing people in France. I've got people in Australia. I'm talking to people in the States. I'm even talking with the CISO of Bank of America and a couple of CISOs in the UK right now. This is a role that is going to evolve and needs to change for the better of the future of what we're doing now with AI. Because of the fact that there is such an increased amount of threat and vulnerability out there, and also the fact that the CISO cannot possibly be the holder of all. They need to have a team around them. And that's where I think the information security officer concept needs to be, or really must be, reconsidered in regards to operational management for the future.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was really well described. It makes me want to, while I'm interested in going into an information security officer role one day, having the idea that you might need, I've even read somewhere that people are looking at creating another layer other than the BISO and TISO but a separate, like more than one person to do the role of CISO, for example, because it's a very heavy duty role.
Can I also just interject one more thing about that? That the other thing is too, I know that everyone's going for profits and companies want to have profit, but let's be very clear. If you really want to go with profit and you really want to make a lot of money in your organization and you want to be able to do what you need to your shareholders, or if you're going to be a not-for-profit, for example, wouldn't you like to get it right? And reputational damage is excruciating. And if you don't get it right and you don't have the right people in place and you've got one person holding all the different bars and pillars to keep things in place, that's going to collapse. There's no way that's going to work. So when you've got a team and you start to think investing in maybe having a small, great little team in place to assist and to be the guider and helper of the CISO, that's absolutely critical for the future. Because otherwise, sorry guys, reputational damage is going to hit you it's going to happen. And number two, you're going to lose money. So, financial, we're back to our CIA, criticality, looking at integrity and availability and looking at the numbers and looking at the actual risks. What is the risk? What is the franchise risk? What is the financial risk? What is the reputational damage? This is going to be a problem if the CISO role is not managed and given the opportunity to have assistance.
It's a new risk that we should be considering is overworking of CISOs.
Absolutely.
Should a CISO be a technical person? Is it a requirement that they be a technical person, or can you have someone with a major in music as the CISO of Equifax was when they got broken into? I like the idea of being a technical person that goes down but I'm a technical person. So if I did go down this CISO path, I'd like to think that I would have the protection of the knowledge of where the gaps are. Where in the case of someone coming up as 100% business oriented CISO, that's very important. But would that be a miss that they don't have that little bit of technical knowledge?
Yeah, let's look at some of the examples though. So would any business have a CFO who wasn't a CPA or a chartered accountant? Sorry, my wife's in the next room. I have to say CPA first. Would any business have a general counsel who was not admitted to the bar, as in not a lawyer? But then look at the other side. There are many career paths that will take you to being a chief risk officer. In fact, there are a wide variety of paths that will take you to being a CEO. There's almost no one path that will take you there. And so there's that sense of, and I'm going to claim us engineers, but systems thinking. So someone who can actually think and analyze in a systematic way, who is trained in analysis and the use of data. And as Kathy was saying, it's the team then becomes absolutely critical. So it's not down to just any one of those executive roles. It comes down to the team that they build, the trust that the team has, the shorthand that the team empowers in terms of the conversation. And one of my quality tests is, can that team disagree productively? Everything else is groupthink. Are we thinking all the same way? Is excellent, we're aligned, but actually that doesn't allow us diversity or access to solving complex problems. So what we really need to do is disagree productively. And by productively, I mean we disagree towards a conclusion that we all agree is the path towards the next step.
It's okay to have a bit of professional intellectual friction. In the case of diversity of thought, it's critical.
You got to disagree to agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully I've painted that picture of the CISO as a systems thinker, of an integrator, of a passionate person who is connected with people, but can handle things in the language of risk, surrounded by a team of specialists who are also then comfortable as systems thinkers who can handle things in the language of risk.
Absolutely.
And be able to talk about the threat, the vulnerability, the asset, the likelihood, and the impact. Now we've talked about a risk.
Kathy, as a leader in the cybersecurity industry, what advice would you give to young women who aspire to careers in cybersecurity?
Oh, look, listen, just passion is number one. Embrace lifelong learning. So that's what I've done. And looking for, to be very straight up, I've actually got more male mentors than I have female mentors. And the truth is, I've got two particular men at the moment in my life who are very important, and I have one woman. And it's very hard to find women mentoring, but I'm here. And the thing is, I think it's really important that you find someone who's been in the industry for at least 10, if not 15 years, and has had experience in a middle to senior level management role, because they're going to have already gone through the mud and the woodwork to get to where they are today. And they'll be able to give you stories and guidance in helping you to aspire in your career and to move forward in your career. I think another thing too is when you do study up, like I just got my AI governance certification in August this year, and I'm over 50. Okay. The point is that you build confidence with knowledge. So with the knowledge you get and as you're learning, you're building your own confidence. And I think that's part of having a purpose in what you want to do with your life. And I think the most important thing too is with cybersecurity, particularly in AI and cybersecurity becoming the marriage of the future now, is the fact that, seek out for help. Look at what you could do. Get yourself educated. Get into roles where you can actually be learning on the job. This is the thing too. Don't be scared to speak up and say what you think. Like we just said too, sometimes you got to find those people who disagree to find the agreement. I'll have a story that I'll just quickly show you. I was talking a lot with the chief country officer of France for many years. He's now one of my best friends. And the reason was I used to go into his office all the time and say, you have to do this, and we'd like you to do that. And he used to hate me. Oh, here comes that little beso again. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, don't be scared, because eventually they're going to turn around, because they are going to have to sign off at the end of the day with you on very big projects and scenarios that may have to happen, like platform changes from one country to another or from one region to another. I've been there and done that. But when you start to realize that you can actually talk to these people, work with them, that's what you need to be looking at. Leverage role models and stay resilient in the face of bias. Okay. And I think I think before we finish this podcast quickly, I want to go through what on earth are we talking about when we talk about bias. So encouragement, empowerment, encouragement. Hey guys, that's what CyberChick's all about. Balancing up and encouragement. We need the guys to make it happen. That's my spill.
So how can people find CyberChicks?
Right. www.cyberchicks.com. And CyberChicks is spelled with a Y, cyber, and chicks with an X on the end. CYBERCHIX.com. And the Y is the female gene and the X is the male gene. We need to work together. That's exactly it. We are going to be launching in the new year. And the point is that CyberChicks is very new, and it's going to be around collaboration. Everybody has got women's groups in companies and women this and women that. The point is no one's really talking outside the box, innovatively thinking around the world, around what's happening, looking at AWS, looking at Citigroup, looking at JP Morgan. This is wonderful. But wouldn't it be nice if we can all start collaborating? That's one of the things that CyberChicks is planning to be doing, is to look at collaboration around women's organizations around regions globally. But anyway, we're new. We're baby steps. We're getting there. Our strategy is coming together and we have an action plan. And Bradley is the country manager for Australia. And I have a guy called Steve Kletzmeyer who's here in France, and he is the country manager for France. And we are expanding. And the point is we have a team in Paris and Sydney. So there you go. That's a little tiny spill of what we're doing, but I didn't really expect to be giving a little bit of a ho-ha on CyberChicks, but I think it's really important to note that CyberChicks is really all about balancing up for the future right now, because we're going to be collaborating, aspiring women, encouraging men to encompass and encourage us going forward. This is what makes it different, is that we need the men to help the women, and we're going to do this together. Called team building and community.
So I like the X and Y. In some organizations, it's all about the women, but you've asked for support from men as well, which is very good to see.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm all about 50-50, the 51% women. Okay, yeah, but come on, we're like 25% in cyber and AI and actually emerging technologies, which I call future tech. the point is that with Bradley and with me meeting up at Isaka in French, ISACA, guys. The point is, that's another thing too. Join up with groups. We can start to meet people, start to be part of the communities around in your countries, in your cities, where you can be meeting with cybersecurity specialists, with AI specialists, with governance specialists, with and everybody who's in different industry across different industries. It all comes down to the same stuff. Whether you're in healthcare, banking, car industry, automobiles, EVs, whatever, every single point around cybersecurity and AI is going to be the same. That's the great thing about cybersecurity, is that all the models and all the framework of information security with NIST and with ISO and all that is for every single industry across the planet. So that's another great thing about being in the world of cybersecurity.
You've just created another technology in AI. So
exactly.
I'm really passionate about it, because as I looked at the problem as a systems thinker and said, how do I solve the problem? What I want is the largest lever. And if the largest lever in the problem of diversity is the population size, the largest population is men. And so what I've tried to do throughout our session today is sprinkle in a few ideas and just opportunities for us to change as blokes, as men, and as guys who care. Actually, what we want is the best and easiest work life we can find. So some practical advice for putting my hat on as the hiring manager. What am I looking for? Firstly, it's that someone has a passion for cybersecurity. Are they a lifelong learner? Are they people with empathy? Are they systems thinkers? And most importantly, can they be calm in a crisis? Then learn the trade. Now, as I've told both of my children, who are now much older now, what's daddy's first rule of hacking? Don't get caught. And then you ask them to think about it. Is there a way you could hack and never get caught? And then they think, well, I guess I could never hack. Boom. So as much as I've said, learn the trade, do it safely. Find safe places to experiment, do courses, use labs. Don't turn your skills on any one system. Grab a Raspberry Pi, install like Kali Linux on it. There are beautiful, explicit scripts all the way through about how to do it, and then that gives you a burner, something you can throw away. I'm just saying, good tradecraft, have a burner. It's not fast, by the way. The Pis are not fast, but at least that's something you can throw away. Don't use your laptop. Certainly, if you have your home email on it, don't ever use that.
I remember hearing stories of people port scanning their own home network to see from the outside what it looks like.
Yeah, that one. You'll be scared. Then learning the trade, listen to podcasts, something that's easy to focus on learn, like The World's Greatest Con, or I love Spycast, which is the history of international espionage. There's so many transferable learnings about how it's gone badly in combat and in nation-state trade throughout the modern history of the world. So become a bit of a historian and have some fun stories to tell. Then maybe approach OSN, so open source intelligence. What can you find on Google? What can you learn about? It's actually an entirely fascinating area and something that most good hackers are good at. As I said earlier, it's about hacking the person. And then step up to the podcasts that are about the trade, Hacking Humans, Darknet Diaries, and when you're feeling bold, SANS Internet Storm Center's Stormcast. That one loses me. I'm a techie from way back there occasionally.
So I haven't given that one an opportunity yet. The Stormcast, is it still going?
Yeah, it's still going, 6 minutes a day. And today I'm recording from Jacksonville, Florida. You listen to enough of them and you'll learn to appreciate that insider. And then the final one is just remember to focus on your transferable skills. What we're hiring is people with experience and people who have already lived and fought through the battle. So, for instance, some roles that are great at following a process is orchestral musicians, because there's a conductor, there is sheet music, you have to listen to your cohort, and you have to take the signs. We are speaking with a qualified ballerina. And so ballet is yet again an excellent way to have access into cyber, because it's all about learning the choreo, learn about the choreography.
And discipline.
And practice. Practice
Absolutely.
a bit more. Now you're
And don't be scared. Butterflies in the tummy, and you're going to jump out on stage. Believe me, that's going to happen all the time when it's threats, vulnerabilities, and issues. Hello.
Now you're managing a step one. Other sorts of transferable skills, people who I from the University of McDonald's. Have you been taught customer service? There's a customer on the other side of the bench who might be having a bad day. And how could you help them have a good day? McFlurries. And people who understand a team and leadership. So yeah, they bring those aspects. So those are the things I think about if you're pursuing or interested in a career in cybersecurity. Have a passion, start learning the trade, but do it safely. Don't get caught. And if you do get caught, just remember my next favorite words: non-extradition country. Good luck.
Yes, I've heard that before.
Gosh, Brad, media central. Here we go.
And then, of course, focus on your transferable skills. So have a passion, learn the trade, and focus on your
transferable skills and passport control.
Yeah. Have somebody else's passport ready.
Oh my gosh, we'll all become a dual passport holder like I am. Can I just mention just 3 things I want to say to add to what Brad's been beautifully putting together as a conclusion in regards to cybersecurity. And we haven't really got onto the AI topic today, but that's another discussion we should have. But there's 3 things I'd like to say as the founder for CyberChicks and having a wonderful new team in Sydney and now in Paris. As we go into the new year of 2025, believe in yourself, be passionate, and join community. And this is really important. And don't forget to look for your role models around you, and also get very closely connected to those in your companies, if you're in companies now, who can become your partners. Hold their hands or get them to hold each other's hands with you, because you're not allowed to do this alone. You will need to have a team. And that's my little bit of advice to you.
I think that's a very good good advice to finish up on. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Brad. You can find us more of this on the Cyber Consulting Room podcast. And thank you very much for this recording.